Welcome, everybody, to one of the most highly anticipated Blue Jay Center podcasts brought to you by the Sick Podcast Network. I'm alongside of, I'm James Price, along with Robin Telemann and Cole Whiston. And boys, there's been a lot of negative pods, but as we get closer and closer to the season getting going, optimism strikes, and it starts right now.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast. Blue Jays Center.
Bautista drives it deep left field. Gone!
The sickest Toronto Blue Jays podcast. It's gonna be sick.
It may not be the eve before opening day, boys, but God, it feels like Christmas, doesn't it? Baseball begins, real baseball, not this spring training garbage, gets going on Thursday afternoon at Rogers Center. It just sounds so sweet. Boys, how we doing?
Can't wait,
pretty
man.
Good. Yeah, this is way better than last year at this time, so I'm stoked.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, obviously, this is, like you mentioned, not the eve of opening day, but we're within shouting distance, guys. Literally, if you do the math, hours away. I think 70, 60-something hours until the first pitch. So I'm all giddy. I'm all fired up. I can't wait, man. I can't wait to do this pod. It's always my favorite. Let's get it.
And we're hanging banners, aren't we?
Oh, why not?
Grapefruit
Why not?
Grapefruit champs, yeah.
I can't get over that nonsense. Anyways, boys, but we're live on YouTube, guys. And if you want to, get your comments heard, get your bold takes heard, your predictions, your over-unders, your personal ones, fire it in the comments, and we'll let it be heard on the pod. Boys, there's a lot of housekeeping stuff we got to take care of first before we get into the fun stuff of the pod. Going to be a long one, but let's start right away with the most recent news that Alejandro Kirk re-ups with the Blue Jays, was going to be a free agent at the end of next year. He is signed through the 2030 season. And I got to say, I like the business. With a 5-year, $58 million contract for Alejandro Kirk.
Yep.
I mean, getting the chunky boy around. Let's be honest, fellas. They traded Gabby Moreno. They let Jansen go. You had to do this. You could not have let this get any worse. Cole, what do you think, pal, about the signing?
No brainer, to be honest with you. You look at the metrics in terms of just the catching position, and Kirk is inarguably a top 10 catcher in baseball. He is arguably a top 5 catcher in baseball when he has an everyday role, which in his only everyday role in 2022, he was a 4-WAR player. So 5 years, $58 million, just over $12 million, or just under $12 million AAV. No brainer, because even if it doesn't work out, like Alejandro Kirk's, durability doesn't live up to expectations the way you were anticipating, that's not a contract that's going to be hard to get off of. So This was a no-brainer in my opinion. If everything that we've heard in spring training is true regarding how good he's looked, and then the numbers that he's put up in spring, if those are real, then this is a steal.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think there's much more to add about that. I think that people seem to have, let me say, altering opinions on Alejandro Kirk just because his career has just been literally 2 players in one, if you think about it. You look at his first 750 plate appearances. That was back from 2020 to 2022. You look at a guy that came up as a bat first prospect. This was a guy that was going to do serious damage at the plate, and you would kind of hide him behind the plate. Oh, maybe you could kind of have him piggyback. You can hide him in the DH spot. Remember when we would manipulate the lineup so that we can put Alejandro Kirk in DH because we didn't want him catching back in 2021? It's been a complete 180 the last couple of years. He's been, by the numbers, a pretty decent hitter relative to a catcher. You look at his overall numbers, OPS plus in the 90s. Nowhere near what he was the first few years of his career when we thought he was he actually was a legitimate Silver Slugger in 2022, but up for a catcher relative to catching standards, very, very good hitter. And then obviously defensively behind the plate, that's what he's made his bread and butter. He's been a 2.5 WAR player the last couple of years, comparable to Gabby Moreno. So I think that if you were to look at this objectively, even if Alejandro Kirk, if all he is the guy he was the last 2 years, which is, around a league average hitter for a catcher and great defense, this is still a steal. If he is the 4-win Silver Slugger that he was the first couple of years of his career, then at that point it's a really good deal. You look at the dollar per WAR value, most guys who are 2.5 to 3 win players, they're exceeding $11 million annually. So I think it's a home run signing for the Blue Jays.
What's
Solid player, solid contract.
Yeah, what's cool about this final note on this, James, is under this regime, Ross Atkins and Mark Shapiro have only extended 3 Toronto Blue Jays, and Alejandro Kirk would fit right into the middle, right behind Jose Barrios for the biggest contract that they've extended, and then Randall Grichuk is the other contract. So under this regime, it doesn't happen very often, so that's the other thing, that they were able to get this deal done with Kirk, and that was impressive all in itself.
Now, whatever it means, I mean, I don't think it really means a whole lot, but he's the only Blue Jay as of right now signed through the 2030 season. Again, it's still, there's a long ways away, but it's something to say that you're going into the next decade with a 5'8" chunky fella behind the dish, and that's your cornerstone moving forward. As of right now, a lot of things can change, as Ben Ennis said on the pod. Maybe that would be the Christmas Eve gift. A Vladdy contract before opening day on the Wednesday. Wouldn't that be something? But hey, we don't know. But boys, let's get away from the Kirky extension. We could talk about it for hours. We're not going to do it, though. We're just not. Let's talk about the last thing spring training-wise before we get into the fun stuff that everyone wants to talk about. And that is the roster crunch here. Because there was a lot of things going down the stretch. You didn't know who was going to make it. Was Barger going to make it? Were they going to Stuart Baroa? What was going to happen with Dalton Varsho? We kind of had a feeling what was going to happen. You didn't know for sure. And then the news breaks that, let's be honest, the guy that is was kind of surprised by a lot of Jays fans were surprised that he actually made the team because of the way that Ross and Mark and all those guys have done teams in the past about being very conservative with their prospects. Alan Roden makes the team out of camp. What it means moving forward into the month or two in the season, we won't know. We don't know yet, but it's a great sign for a young kid. And clearly the organization loves him to death to not only give him that opportunity, but the praise they were giving him before the spring, and then he crushed it in the spring. So I want to get your guys' thoughts on Roden making the team.
I think, I think that it's just one of those things that he played so well that he made it impossible to ignore. It would have been, the Jays would legitimately had to have a press conference, in my opinion, if they were going to send Alan Roden back down to AAA to start the year. And here's the other thing. We say that we don't necessarily know what that means to start the year for him. I think by him making the team, it has to mean that he's been going to be given an everyday role. I know that Miles Straw is basically guaranteed that center field position, but I think that Anthony Santander and George Springer are guaranteed, one of the two of them are going to be DHing to start the year, and Alan Roden's going to be starting in one of the corner outfielder spots, because that's the only reason why you do this. The guy went berserk in spring training, and I know that, the opponent quality is not always there, but when you have Barry Bonds level OPS, at some point, and this team needs a bat, it couldn't be ignored, so I am very happy for Roden to make the team, and I hope that this is just one of 162 games that we get to see, and he doesn't have to get sent back down because he's performing at a big league level all season long.
Because let's be honest, though, guys, the Jays are kind of dying for one of these. Like, they had the couple months of Davis Schneider, but other than that, they haven't had a guy who's not burst onto the scene, but a guy with a little bit of hype to him that's come up and just done well consistently and just been a part of the team year in, year out, and you just know what you're going to get. You haven't got that. And so I'm intrigued to see what happens. Rob, what do you got?
I mean, whatever Cole just said, I mean, I agree with everything. I agree with every word. And it's unfortunate that you were the one so you brought it up first, so I can't stake my claim in that take. But yeah, I 100% agree that Alan Roden is, well, first of all, kudos to the front office for being aggressive. I didn't think they had it in them. I didn't predict them to make the roster for that reason. And secondly, yeah, I completely agree that by doing this, I think this should be a signal that he should be playing every day in some role, because we mentioned obviously Dalton Varsho not being on the roster. That means Miles Straw should be your starting center fielder, which makes sense because when you have questionable corner outfield defense, you do want to have solidified center field defense, and Miles Straw can definitely provide that. That's what he's here for. But in terms of the corner outfield, I think now, obviously, both Santander and Springer, we know their age. Them playing on turf the first 7 days of the year, they're going to have some DH days. And that means Alan Roden should be starting in the corner outfield whenever one of them is DHing. And I think that's how they're going to do it, honestly. I think that by carrying 3 outfielders, there's no reason why they should be, there's no reason why you should have 2, backup outfielders on the bench when Dalton Varsho's hurt. That makes absolutely no sense at that point. Why not just carry a Leo Jimenez or an Addison Barger at that point who can give you infield versatility? I honestly thought that's the way they'd go with that last roster spot. I thought Leo Jimenez was my guy if I had to predict the roster, but I'm glad they went about it this way. I'm glad that they're signaling that they want to be aggressive and that they're trying to maximize the length of this lineup. I'm very excited to see what Alan Roden has. Obviously, Pricey, you and I, we got to chat with him in Buffalo last summer, so it's pretty cool that another friend of the show will be taking at bats at Rogers Center, hopefully on opening day. I'm very excited. I think Alan Roden, little teaser for their over-unders. We'll have an Alan Roden adjacent a line, so I'm very excited about that. So yeah, I could not agree more with what Professor said. I'm Team Roden, man. Let's get it.
I think we're all Team Roden. I think a lot of
Yeah.
Blue Jay fans right now are Team Roden because again, we need this.
Yes.
We need it. We're kind of relying on him a little too much, but we're there. And I just think I'm very intrigued to see how they use him. Like you mentioned, Rob, with no Dalton Varsho, you mentioned Miles Straw, but how long is that going to last before, because the organization loves him to death. They wouldn't have him up here if they weren't going to play him. No, that was a talk about, who was that? Was it Relvis last year or something like that? Do you want to bring him up to DH? And it's like, oh, yeah, I don't know.
Right.
And so you bring up Roden. Look, he's going to get the opening day. I won't say he's going to get the start. If he does, boy, that's a bold move.
Yeah,
but
he has to. Yes.
They should.
I mean, they're clearly putting their eggs into his basket, and they want to give him a good look. So throw him out there.
Yeah.
Why the hell not?
No, he will. I would be willing to part with money that Alan Roden is starting opening day.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. Like I mentioned, there's no point in having him sit on the bench. I think that he made this move for a reason. Yeah.
Right.
Like if all you wanted was depth at the end of the roster, you could have just gone with someone who probably fits the roster a little bit better, positional versatility, all that jazz that we all love to hear.
Yeah.
But I think if you want to go upside and with a legitimate prospect like Alan Roden is, I mean, throw him out there. And here's the thing. I mean, we get that he's making his big league debut, but the guy's 25. He's not really a spring chicken in terms of rookies, right? So I think that he's good to go. I agree. I agree that he will, and that he should be starting on opening day.
Because here's the other thing, like with Varsho on the IL, and you having to have Miles Straw in the lineup, that likely means that George Springer and Miles Straw are going to be in the lineup, which means two of your outfield bats are below average. I mean, whatever Springer's going to do this year, whatever. But
Miles Straw is I'm not even sure below average as a just.
Exactly. Two of these guys are very likely to be one of the two of the worst hitters in baseball this year if they get everyday at bats. So the both of them need to be supplemented by somebody who actually has a bat, and that would be Alan Roden. So I would legitimately be shocked if he's not starting opening day.
Yeah, that's a good point. Well, with going to that, I mean, I had an over-under that I was ready to go with, maybe like a Miles Straw innings in the first month because I feel like it's going to be too high for my liking. But speaking of over-unders, Rob's got a bunch cooked up.
Oh, we're ready to go?
Ryan Yarbrough? Well, let's be honest. Do you want to talk more spring training and Kirk extension? No,
I do not.
Here's the news and notes. Ryan Yarbrough didn't make the roster. Some people are upset about it. A soft-throwing lefty in the AL East will never be something that is necessary. There is 1,000 Ryan Yarbroughs. I promise you we will not miss him. And if we do, I guarantee you he'll be available in July again for free. The second thing, Will Wagner also made the roster. Yeah. His position and his usage is definitely more questionable since the infield is kind of solidified. Mm-hmm. He's probably going to start on the bench, but Will Wagner was another guy going into the year that we were debating whether or not he's going to make the roster. He did make the roster, so we'll see what happens there.
Very, very intrigued to see what they do with him because they've been doing a lot of third base with him in the spring. But let's be honest, that arm, I just don't know if that arm's going to translate. And obviously, with getting Andres Gimenez at second, it's like, okay.
Yeah, and you have your third baseman solidified.
Well, that with
Ernie.
Yeah. So I don't know. I'm intrigued to see what happens since he made the team and kind of how they go about it because they wanted to probably give him reps. Again, it's not a guy that you want to have sitting on the bench. You kind of want to know what you got with your guy. Yeah. So
if I was to predict, I would say that Will Wagner's role in this roster, he's probably the third baseman when there's a righty on the hill. And I think after that, he's just filling in the blanks, like whether that's, Andres Gimenez, he's a day off or stuff like that. That's how I would predict that to go. All right. But anyway, no more end of the roster stuff because the reality, guys, let's be honest. I mean, the roster's going to change after the Baltimore series. It's going to change guaranteed before the first road trip of the year. It always does. It's always a hot topic. Who made the roster, who didn't. But in the end, it's not all that consequential because let's be honest, the Jays are going to use a lot more than 26 guys this year. Every team will. That's just a fact.
Yep.
All right, guys. I think we're all ready to go for the over-under segment, unless you guys have anything else to cover.
Come on.
All right. So first, let me just explain the ground rules before we get in. We got to do our dishes
fight
first.
here, Rob. What's going on here? Ground rule. It's like we're fighting. You wait, get the ground rules or what?
Might as well, man. I'm thinking the way we structure it this way. I'm gonna give you guys an over/under. If you guys both just completely agree right off the bat, I'm gonna switch the line. To
Yeah,
make it a
Rob,
little
you're
bit
an
more
idiot.
juicy.
Let's big time over. Yeah, okay. One of
Yeah,
those. All right,
exactly. And the second point is because this, not so much with you, Pricey, with Professor. Professor, just so we're clear, these predictions will stay with you for the rest of the year. No cowarding out like last year. We have we have it on tape. We have it on tape. You picked them to win over 87 games. You denied it. We'll go back and we'll look at it. All right. So that you'll be staked to these claims no matter what happens. Just so you know. Just so we're clear. All right. Without further ado, folks.
As in, just to make it even more clear, we will be revisiting these over/unders halfway through the year and at the end of the year,
100%.
just to see how we did. Go ahead.
100%. All right. So let's get started. And I think you guys know where I'm starting with this. It's a Vlad over/under. And
Wow.
and the Vlad over/under that I have is related to his baseball reference war. And I'll give you a little justification for the number. I'm setting the number at 5.25. And the reason for that is it is somewhere in between his 2021-2024 elite status and his 2022 solid but somewhat underwhelming status. So basically, I thought that was a cute line of demarcation. If it's over 5.25, that would imply a season a lot closer to elite status. If it's below, probably a little bit closer to solid, not so elite after all. So basically, 5.25. Price, I'll let you go first. What do you got, buddy?
Cool. All right. So this is a tough one because initially when you said it, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna hit the over because he's in contract year. He's gonna got a lot more lineup protection. But as we've noticed, at least to start last year when games mattered, no good, bud. So, but I'm in between. You know what? I got to slap the over on that, though. I can't be stupid. You're hitting around Bo, who's going to have some sort of crazy year that we all kind of feel. He's going to probably have Santander behind him. The line of protection is significantly better than having, Ernie Clement or somebody hitting behind you last year. Very different stuff. And a real Bo Bichette is going to help a ton in front of him. So I'm going to hit the over on that.
Yep.
So I am a gambling man, and for anybody that is confused by the fact that Rob said 5.25 when you can go to Baseball Reference and you won't see a 0.25, like it stops at the 10th decimal. For gambling people, you'll understand that you have to include the half point to determine an over/under. So 5.3 is over, obviously. 5.2 is under. And I'm also going to take the over, but I don't think he'll hit 6 WAR.
I think he's going over 6.
My WAR for Vladdy was at 5.5 when I crunched the numbers today, so that's where I have him. So I do have him over 5.25, but I do have him under 6.
Damn, looks like you guys are ready to bring out the Brinks trucks. If only, we didn't talk about this for the last month. We have a whole Vlad topic because if you think it's going to be that good, I think he's going to get paid.
Maybe we should talk about it again because we haven't done it enough.
That's it. We're going to do a Vlad topic if he signs before opening day or whenever he signs. But other than that, we're burying this until a lesser impactful news deadline. So, okay, that's good. You guys are both optimistic about Vlad, which is great for the team. It's great for the team. If Vlad's an elite player, I think that only helps the Blue Jays' chances.
Sure.
So,
What do you have? What do you have?
I mean, I debated giving my take because the thing is, if I'm the one setting the line, it's a little awkward because I think it's right on smack dab. If I were to bet, I would take the under personally. I think that just like my whole point all along about Vlad is that I think that the whole body of work, I think he's just under. Doesn't mean you won't get paid, but I would say just under.
Yep. And by the way, you are going to give your take on this all the way. So.
All right, cool. Sounds good. No, as long as we're clear about that. All right.
6 WAR season, baby.
6 WAR. Let's get it.
6 in the 6.
Second over under. I mean, maybe not the second most polarizing player on the roster, but I mean, I guess in terms of excitement, Max Scherzer was obviously obviously Santander, he's the biggest acquisition of the offseason, but I think Max Scherzer is the one that gets everyone all frisky. And my over-under for him, which by the way, one thing we didn't mention about Max Scherzer is that he pitched the penultimate game of spring training. Everything looked good. He said he feel good. And then he'll pitch the third game of the Baltimore series. So all Blue Jays fans interested in seeing Max Scherzer's Blue Jays debut Saturday against the Orioles is when he's slated to go. But anyway, my over-under for Max Scherzer. I got Max Scherzer's innings pitched this season. I'm going to setting the number at 109.5. And basically, let me explain how that works. If he goes 109 and 2/3 innings, that's over. If he goes 109 and a third, that's under. So there's no way he can finish with a push. So based either over or under. And my justification for this number is 109 innings is roughly just over 5 innings over the course of 20 starts.
Yep.
That's how I came to that number.
Cool. You want to start this one?
Yeah, I'll
Oh
start.
yeah, Cole will go
Alright.
first on this one. 'cause we'll alternate every time.
First, it's very notable that he's getting Game 3 of the Baltimore series. That suggests that you think he's the third best starter in your rotation, which means they have Chris Bassett and Bowden Francis behind him, which I think going into the year, you would have assumed Chris Bassett would slot into the 3, Scherzer at the 4 because of the injury stuff. But I think that's good for Jays fans to note that the guy we got in the offseason we think is our third best starting pitcher this year. So I think that's notable. Someone asked in the chat, how do we feel about the first month being so hard? You have to have a winning record out of this homestand. You have to go at least 4-3 against the Orioles and the Nationals before you go on the road against the gauntlet of the Mets and the Red Sox and the Orioles. So that's my initial thoughts on that. I'm taking the over. And I think he'll hit it comfortably. But that's me assuming he doesn't get injured.
Well, that's basically the question.
I know. But so yeah, I'm never gonna bet on an injury. So I'm gonna take the over comfortably.
Well, I'm gonna go the other way. Unfortunately, I want to believe. I want to believe so damn bad that we're gonna watch Mad Max in September, starting to cook. I don't know if they play the Yankees in September. I hope they do, but I'm hoping you go out there and swing and whiff Aaron Judge for strike 3 to end the ball game as he throws a complete game. To put the Jays in a play, I don't know, something beautiful like that.
All of that could happen while he still hits the under.
It definitely could. It definitely could. But my thing is that I don't think he'll get there, and I think by mid-season or so, I think a guy like Alec Manoah might, when he comes back, kind of slide into that spot at some point, and then Mad Max just kind of go off into the distance. I hope I'm wrong. Again, I really do, but I'm going to take the under on it.
Yeah, I tend to agree with Price here. I mean, this is a guy that from September of 2023 up until now, that's like 18 months and like a lot of offseason in those 18 months. Or is that right? Yeah, I think so, yeah. And he's been on the IL 5 times. And that's not including this spring training little thumb injury he had. I mean, he's pitching great. He looks great. Everyone's all pumped. But the reality is he's, 41 years old? I mean, look, any inning you get out of Max Scherzer, that's something. I mean, obviously he's getting paid $15.5 million, so they're expecting him to be a viable piece. But I don't know how his body will hold up. I think that being the level-headed logic that I am, I think that the under is the safe bet. But once again, I hope I'm wrong. I hope that Max Scherzer goes 150 plus innings and he's like a legitimate, like end of career Justin Verlander type Cy Young push. But yeah, I'll take the under for that one.
Here's my reasoning, just to finish off the point. The Jays pitching and training staff, the one thing they have been able to do with these arms, despite being the oldest rotation in baseball, is keep them on the field.
Definitely.
That's why I'm going to bet on the staff. Go ahead.
Okay.
Yep. Staying with the staff, we're moving on to Kevin Gausman, 4th year of that contract, which to this day still looks like a steal. First 2 seasons were magnificent, was a top 10 in Cy Young both years. And then last year, late start to spring training, kind of seemed like he was uncomfortable the whole year, trying to catch up. However, the second half of the year was a lot better. His spring training so far looks a lot better. The velo's all the way up. You had Keegan telling us that he's going to go back to ace form. That got me fired up when you talked to him, Cole. I'm setting his ERA plus. For those of you who don't know, ERA plus, kind of like OPS plus, is basically it's a measure of how effective a pitcher is relative to league average, 100 being the league average. I'm setting the over-under at 118.5. And the reason why I'm setting it that way, my
hell of a line.
My rationale for that one is that his career ERA plus the Blue Jay is 118. So if you're taking the over, you think that he'll perform to a level that was analogous to his first 2 seasons. If you under, then you're probably somewhere more towards last year. So do you think he'll be closer to the pitcher he was the first 2 years, or the pitcher he was closer to last year?
James, I can start.
Closer to the pitcher he was last year.
You know what?
I gotta
go.
Okay.
I gotta go the over. I think. Again, is it the positive brain working with me right now? It probably is, but I don't give a rat's ass that it's doing that to me. I think Gaz is going to shove this year, boys. There's something in me that look. We saw baseball. Cole, you've played ball all your life. Baseball is a weird damn sport. You can have a season where you're absolute dog water, and then you figure it out. Look at Jose Barrios, fellas. Now, again, he was younger when he had the season, but I look at Gausman. You don't drop off a cliff like that. Like he fell off that cliff fast. He was like over 200 strikeouts. Didn't he lead the American League in strikeouts or something like that the year before that?
Yes,
It made
Cy Young finalist.
Right. Makes no sense. So I think he's going to bounce back in a big way. And let's be honest, if the Jays, if they want to go where they want to be, he's got to be great. So I'm going to take the over on that. I think he's going to be around the 121, 122 ERA pluses.
So yeah, the whole Keegan thing is where I'm going to go with this logic. Keegan also said last year that he thought Bo Bichette was going to have a breakout year.
Calling out Keegan.
So, but Keegan was writing a book, which is now finished and going to be published in June. So I think this spring training he's been more locked in, and a guy with that kind of access to the clubhouse and that much baseball knowledge, I'm going to assume he doesn't go 0 for 2 on bold spring training predictions. So yes, I also think Kevin Gausman is going to shove this year, but I think this is a hell of a line. So it's really tough for me to decide on an over-under because I think it's going to be at that number. I'm going to take the over, but I'm projecting it to be 119. Like I do think it'll be closer to 119 than I think it'll be to 126, which is what he did, I believe, 2 years ago when he was that Cy Young finalist. I think it was 126. I think he'll be closer to 119 than he will be to 126.
Fair enough.
I'm going to clean sweep, guys. I'm going to clean sweep. I think that like the Keegan thing, like that, after listening to that pod, that really sold me. Because after that, I looked back at last season and he was a lot better in the second half of last year. You mentioned Pricey, like the drop off and whatever, but like he was still like a 105 ERA plus, like an ERA in like the 380s. Like that's still a very, very respectable season, despite the fact that he was battling pretty much the whole year to catch up. I think I'm sold on the Gausman, which is. Here's the thing. I'll admit when I was wrong, and maybe I'm not wrong, but I'll admit I'm retracting my previous take of maybe he's just washed. That was my take last year when he was really struggling in the first half of the year. I looked at the age and I said, you know what, man, maybe that's just what it is. Maybe Father Time kind of caught up with him a bit, but no, I'm doing a 180 on that. I think Kevin Gausman's gonna have a monster year. I think that he'll go right back to being one of the best starters in the American League. So yeah, I'm with you guys. We're taking the over. Clean sweep.
Go ahead.
Well, the big thing for him, and we talked about it like all last year, it was ad nauseum. Everyone's talking about the fastball velo, right?
Yeah.
And it was like he was sitting. What was that start in Yankee Stadium?
Oh yeah,
first or second start of the year.
Watch,
where he was hitting 89, 88, and I'm like, what the hell am I watching right now? And we got so used to seeing him throw 96 and touch 98s, and it's like, okay, this is all weird. And it doesn't fall off a cliff that bad. You mentioned, Rob, that all the reports in spring training, he's hitting that 96 right away in his first start. And you're like, okay. Yeah. And usually you see guys try to ramp up to that, but he's hitting it on this very first outing. So that's where I think it's going to be huge. It's going to go back to playing his split incredibly well. So that's why I think it's the over hard.
Yeah. And piggybacking off of those two opinions, if he does fall off a cliff, because that can happen at age 35, like Rob was saying. Sure. If that does happen, then usually you can't get back to that velo, which goes to James's point. Since he's back at that velo, there's no reason to assume that he's fallen off a cliff. Here's the other thing. Kevin Gausman has one of the best pitches in all of baseball with his splitter when it's on. If that fastball is touching 96 and he's sitting at a comfortable velo, that makes the splitter that much harder to hit, which means that if he has an effective fastball, then his splitter, which is already elite, should be even more effective. So that's why I think both combinations can lead to Kevin Gausman having a Kevin Gausman-esque year again.
For sure.
Yeah, I'm with it. The Jays, obviously, the analytics say you need pitchers who can strike fellas out, and you need guys who can hit bombs. Moving on to guys who can hit bombs, we got Anthony Santander, Blue Jays' top acquisition this offseason. He's going to be the thumper in the middle of the lineup. He hits a lot of home runs, hit 44 of them last year, and he's going to have to hit a few home runs this year if the Jays are going to be successful. But will he hit over 32.5, guys? That's going to be the over-under. Anthony Santander, over or under 32.5. I'll give this one to you, Prof, to start off.
For me, that's an easy over.
Okay.
I expect his floor to be 32.5. So I'm assuming that with the lineup protection and just a new scene, I've definitely am one that adheres to the opinion that a new scene always will reinvigorate some energy in a player because he's coming into a new fan base with expectations and being the top acquisition for the Toronto Blue Jays, on top of the fact that you went to a division rival and in conversations regarding his extension with the Baltimore Orioles, he shut it down. He was like, there was no shot I was going back to them, which suggests to me that he's got a chip on his shoulder, hence why he signed with the Blue Jays, and hence why I think that he's going to have just a good vibe energy this year. So I think the floor is 32.5, so I'm definitely taking the over. I can see him hitting 40 again this year.
Okay. Pricey, if you're this adamant, we might have to change the line. What's your take?
So I'm going to go the other way.
Okay.
Look, I understand the 44 bombs last year in that ballpark. They obviously did all the renos to Camden Yards, and that was at left field.
And they moved the fence back.
Totally understand that. I totally get it. But there's a reason for me seeing his stat lines and seeing him hit over 33 once in his career, and it being last year. He had 33 2 years ago and only 28 the year before his 44 season. I don't know if I can bank on that. Now, am I saying he's going to hit like 22? No, obviously not.
Yeah.
But if it's 32.5, I think he'll hit around the 30 bomb mark. But I don't think he's going to hit the 40, 45 that people will get all horned up and think it's going to be. No, I think he'll be around the 30 homer mark. He'll be fine. He'll be a good player. He'll be that 30 homer bat in the middle of your lineup. Absolutely. But 32.5, no, I'm going to go the under on that.
Fair enough. So we'll keep the line as it is. I'm going to go a slight over. I was torn between this. Obviously, I was the one who created the over-under, so for me, like, I was kind of in the middle of both. That's why I came to that number. But yeah, I'll say 34 bombs. How about that? I'll give you a specific prediction. 34 bombs, so just over. All right. Moving on to one that's not as positive. The one that's a little...
Yeah, know where we're going
gets
here.
people a little bit more frisky. I got George Springer plate appearances, and I'm setting the number at 514.5. But why did I set that number? Because if you take the under, that means you think he'll take 100 less plate appearances than he had all of last year. Keep in mind, last year he hit leadoff for a large portion of the year. That's not going to happen this year. So that right away, that's going to take away some of the at-bats, some of the plate appearances that he would have had he hit leadoff. But also, that's 100 less. You're kind of banking on maybe a little bit of a benching, a little bit of an injury, a little bit of a phantom IL kind of thing. I think that's what you'd have to go for if for him to hit the under. I still think that at least to start the season, he'll get a pretty extended rope playing every day. So what do you think, Pricey? We'll start with you.
Unfortunately, I'm going to have to take the over, fellas. And not for performance reasons. I would love it to be. I'd love for it to be performance related. He somehow figured it out. 30 bombs for Georgia boy. Like I'd love to see it. I don't think so. I think they got to justify the money, and I hate it. I don't like it at all. That's what happened last year. We're banging our head against the wall because he's hitting leadoff in June, and we're like, this is pathetic to watch. Robin, I think we were in Seattle. Wasn't he hitting leadoff then? And we're all like, what in the hell are we doing? I can't remember if he was hitting leadoff that day.
Yeah, I can't remember exactly. He was definitely hitting leadoff when we were in Kansas City.
Regardless of that, it's going to be over, guys. They're not going to move the contract. They're going to play him. And if it gets to a point where the season's a complete freaking wash, who cares? They're just going to run him out there. And it's going to get ugly. Hopefully not. Again, this is all negativity now. But I think it's going to be over.
All right.
It won't matter, but I am going to attach a little bold prediction.
Sure. Okay.
I'm taking the under for sure, because I think one of the outlier scenarios happens, Phantom IL, or he doesn't have 500 at-bats while being a Blue Jay this year.
Yeah.
That's my other thing. So, yeah, I'm taking the under.
Yeah, I'm torn because I wasn't anticipating doing the over-under, so I guess now I have to come up with some logic on the spot and what I think is gonna happen.
Here's my thing: if the Jays are in it,
yes,
and this is assuming Roden has performed to expectations. This assumes that David Schneider is at least back to a serviceable level player. Obviously, Dalton Varsho will be playing every day.
Sure.
Anthony Santander will have no problem staying in the lineup. So I think there's just at some point there's probably going to be just no room for him to start every day, regardless of the contract. And if you're in it, you can't justify to your fan base that he has to be in the lineup every day if you're trying to push for a wild card race. So yeah, that's why I'm taking.
Here's the thing: we're down on George Springer. Everyone's down on George Springer, but I don't know. Part of me looked at the Zips projections, and a lot of them project him to be a bit of a slightly above league average hitter, around a league average hitter. I don't know. Like, that's the thing. Like, I don't think it's gonna happen. But like, look, if he's a league average hitter or slightly above league average hitter, he's playing every day. I mean, at that point, like, I don't even think you can suggest otherwise at that point. So,
Yeah.
I think that there's too many scenarios that would have to happen for him not to play on a semi-everyday role. Obviously, he's going to get rope at the start of the year, like I mentioned. Sure. Obviously, the contract, like James mentioned, and who knows? I'm not ruling out the possibility that he could be somewhat competent. And if that's the case, then yeah, I'll say over. I'll say it's the over on that one.
Okay. Right. They played him every day last year, and I just
yeah.
Yeah.
And who knows? Maybe he might have another. Remember that June stretch that he had last year where he was hitting a home run every day, and I'm like, oh, he's all the way back. I mean, is that out of the realm of possibility? You know, what I mean?
A stretch after that where he couldn't hit a beach ball to save his life.
Yeah,
but yeah. Baseball, baby.
Positive. Yeah, the other 5 months of the year.
Yeah. Moving on to other stuff that was tough to watch in 2024. The Blue Jays bullpen was the worst bullpen in baseball by a mile. That is no exaggeration. If you look at Fangraphs score, they were dead last in the majors, 30th in baseball. They were like over 2 wins, like separated between the 29th ranked team, which I believe was the Rockies. And the difference between them and the next team, the 29th ranked team, was the same distance between the 29th ranked team and the 23rd ranked team. Like, it was just like quite literally the worst baseball by a country mile. It was not debatable. It was not close. They went out. They got Jeff Hoffman, so gave him some guaranteed money. They brought back our old buddy Jimmy Garcia. You know, Nick Sandlin was acquired in the Guardians trade. Chad Green's back after a debate that he might get traded last season. And basically, the over-under is, with the Blue Jays bullpen seemingly looking a lot better on paper, did they get better to the point where they're not a horrible bullpen? And basically what I'm saying is, their Fangraphs WAR ranking, can they be higher than 18th in baseball? 18.5 is their ranking.
Another great line. So
basically, if you think that it's good, I guess under would be good in this scenario. So if you think that they're under, that means you think that they're better than the 19th best bullpen in baseball. You think that they're okay. You know, they're not great, but okay, competent. If it's higher, you think that they're still a bad bullpen all around.
I'm gonna say under. I think they're gonna be significantly better. You know why? Yeah. I'm going to read you names and baseball names. But this is the greatest game on earth, isn't it? Just naming names, isn't it fantastic? No. Some of these bullpen fellows we saw last year. Oh, a name by a Brett DeGus. Yep, fantastic. Jose Quaz, right? Luis Frias. Fantastic stuff there. Yerry Rodriguez, guys. Wes Parsons, okay? Mitch freaking White. Was he
who actually around? Wasn't that bad if you look at his numbers last year.
Yeah, I guess. Paolo Espino, Rob's guy. I mean, Tim Meza, the corpse of Tim Meza to start the year, and Cole's buddy Ryan Yarbrough, that's not a Yankee. We don't have to watch those guys anymore. The depth in the bullpen is significantly better. We don't have to have nothing clean Jordan Romano coming out of the bullpen every ninth inning when you have a lead, but he'll get it done. But it'll make you sweat like crazy.
And also, he was a non-factor last year. We got to remember that.
Absolutely was.
Yeah.
He barely played.
Yeah, and when he did, he wasn't very good.
No. And then the Silver Fox, where
he's gone.
And Zach Pop, that sinker didn't sink, or if it did, right into a barrel, and it didn't work at all last year. We had faith in Brendan Little. Now, again, we still have to this year. But
and Jacob Barnes and who else do they have? Richard Lovelady.
Richard Lovelady. Yeah, oh boy.
Yeah, you want to name?
That's your Jose Quas.
I think having this take on this bullpen is probably the most optimistic take on this podcast. The same names that you just rattled off can be the same names that you will rattle off at this time next year. When we're talking about a bad bullpen. Jeff Hoffman is just as worrisome as Jordan Romano was, which is why the Jays didn't sign Jordan Romano in the first place. He literally failed physicals before we signed him to a contract. I don't see the progression that this bullpen is going to make. The guys that we have been able to rely on are the oldest guys in the bullpen, and we still don't have a lefty that we can trust. So I think this is a great line. I do think we'll be around this line and not around the bottom of the league. But I am going to take higher because I just, there's too much pain from last year. for me to take the under, but also I'm happily to sit here. I'm happy to be sitting here in October and be completely wrong about this take. So
Yep.
I have to take the over, as in we're going to be worse, or we're going to be worse than the 19th best bullpen in baseball.
Okay.
I'm with Pricey on this one. I think that when you look at, there's obviously a lot better guys. Like unquestionably, there's a lot more talent in this bullpen than there was last year. And I think you have to keep in mind, if this team's competitive, they're going to go out and get another guy. They always do every year. They go out and get a guy at the deadline, who at least one guy. Last year they were sellers. They were sellers all the way around, and because of that, they ended up selling off, the Jimmy Garcia and Silver Fox, Trevor Richards, a couple other guys. I can't remember exactly who they traded. And going back now, jogging my memory, but regardless, the reason why you have to see Luis Frias and Yeri Rodriguez and all those great names that Pricey reeled off is because they weren't trying to win. This year, if they're actually trying to win, there'll be better reinforcements than that. So I think that last year's numbers after the deadline were obviously really bad because they were kind of skewed. I think this year it'll be a lot better. Bullpens are volatile as it is. So I think that I don't think that's a lot to ask. And also, let me just be clear. If the Blue Jays bullpen is just this, if it's just the 19th best bullpen in baseball, that is a substantial increase from last year. That is almost a 5-win increase from where they were last year. So even if they're subpar, that is a marked departure, substantial departure from where they were. So I'm optimistic. I think it'll be okay.
That's why I think I can have this take, and it still aligns with the rest of my over-unders, because I think we can have a middle to below average bullpen and still compete for a wild card spot.
That's fair. Just a quick thing, fellas, a little number thing. Tim Mays had a minus 1.2 WAR last year.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Minus 1. Oh my God.
He was terrific.
Yeah. That's putting it lightly, bro. What do you got?
Check Jordan Romano's.
Yeah, exactly. That's the thing. Even if Jeff Hoffman is injury prone, what was the worst case scenario? Use
minus 0.3.
Jordan Romano last year.
Yeah, minus 0.3 WAR. The best WAR out of the bullpen, and this is in air quotes, was Bowden Francis, but a lot of that is obviously starts.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Your best reliever wasn't a reliever. Take that in.
Well, everybody who pitched for the Blue Jays last year out of the bullpen, if you want to count Bowden Francis as well, a 0.1 WAR.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
All right. Moving on to the 7th one, and we're talking about Bo Bichette. Bo Bichette obviously had his worst season last year by a mile, but obviously I think everyone is juiced on what he can do this year. They're all optimistic. We're all giddy about it. I think personally he's going to have a great year. I don't know about you guys, but ultimately, how great of a year does he have? We're going to look at hits, because Bo Bichette led the big leagues in hits for 2 straight years, and he was number 1. Led the AL in hits. Thank you for correcting me on that. And he was first when he got hurt in 2023. So potentially would have three-peated. Potentially would have pulled a non-Chiefs and actually won 3 straight hit titles in the AL. Being the top hits leader in the AL is a tall ask. So I'm gonna give him a bit of a break. Can he be top 10 in hits in baseball? 176.5 hits would have gotten him in the top 10 if you take the over on that last year. Over under 176.5 hits. What do you guys got? And who won first? Who won first?
I think it was me, wasn't it? Yeah.
Oh no, I think Cole went first last time. Right?
I'm pretty sure I did, because I reamed off all the names from.
Right. Yeah, you're right. Okay.
No, it doesn't matter. But I'm taking the over. Both times where he led the league in hits, he was much closer to the 200 mark than he was to the 176 mark. So I'm going to take the over. I think it'll be right around 180. I don't think he'll lead the AL in hits this year, but I do think he'll be in the top 10 comfortably. So my number is 180. I think that's where he'll be at this year.
Yep. Pricey?
I've always been pretty optimistic with Bo this year. I'm pulling a Keegan. I think he's going to lead the AL in hits. I think he's going to hit 200 hits again. I think he's going to be elite stuff. Bo is such a guy where he thrives on, I don't want to say people not believing him, but
well, yeah. No, that's
I guess that's what it is, eh?
When he came up, people got to remember, he called out the front office. He legitimately called them out. He said, I don't know what else I have to do to make the big league roster, but I'm going to continue doing it. And then a week later, he gets called up, and then he goes on that tear to start his first campaign. And then, obviously, he follows it up by leading the AL in hits back-to-back years. And then going into last year, the conversation was, we should be paying him and not paying Vladimir Guerrero Jr., and then he has his worst season, whatever. He dealt with injuries all year long. People have to remember that. He's one of the best 2-strike hitters in baseball. And that will obviously lead to a lot of hits just by putting the ball in play. So that's the other thing.
I think he's going to get 200, guys. I think with the line of protection he's got around him with Vladdy, again in Santander and whoever the hell's hitting leadoff for this team moving forward, because it
Hopefully
better
him.
not be Georgie boy. Well, yeah, God,
Hopefully
I mean, there you go. There's another thing, right? He's going to get some more plate
Exactly.
appearances batting leadoff. So I think he's going to do it. I think he's going to have an outstanding year. And of course, for Blue Jay fans and Toronto sports fans, you're used to that stuff. In contract years, go have a great year and let us feel the pain as you walk away. But I'm hoping that's not the case here. But nobody's talked about Bo, right?
Yeah.
In the sense of like, all the talk's been about Vladdy's contract,
yeah.
right? Give him the 700, give him a blank check, all this stuff. Everyone's like, Bo Bichette, let him go. It's gone. He's already 1 foot out the door. See you later. Trade him in the offseason. No one cares.
Yeah.
And now he's going to go out there and get 200 hits with no more Bo flows. So,
yeah. I mean, the thing is that I think he's gonna have a great year. Like you guys think, I think he's a terrific baseball player. I think last year was definitely going to be an outlier season. Top 10 in AL and hits is going to be tough, especially because like you mentioned last year the nagging injuries. That's my worry that the injuries might keep him out a bit. I'll say because I want to be different. I'll take the under on this one. Not because I don't think he'll have a great year, because I will, but I think that I think he might not quite get to top 10 in the AL and hits. But yeah, I'm a Bo Bichette believer. I think he'll have an awesome season. So I'll take a slight under on this one.
Yeah, I hope that if it's the under, it's because there was a focus in the offseason on lifting the ball, and he puts up probably his best home run hitting year this year in a contract year, which would make a lot of sense.
Yep,
that was
fair. I
bold
didn't
take
even
for
consider that.
30 home
That's
runs.
good analysis there. All right, moving on to the 8th over under, and it's the surprise candidate OPS plus over under. For that one, I have. Let me explain the ground rules on this one. This is basically who is the surprise candidate. We talked basically all offseason that they're going to need a guy. They're going to need at least one guy who's going to come up and make an actual impact from these 4A minor league players. Obviously the Alan Rodens, Orelvis Martinez, the Addison Bargers, maybe Leo Jimenez. You can throw him in that area as well. Will Wagner, yes, another guy. Even David Schneider. I mean, I guess he's a little bit more graduated, but you can kind of put him in that tier as well. And I'm going to set the number at 109.5. Basically, do any of these guys come in, and are they a slightly above league average hitter? Keep in mind, I'm going to give you guys a qualifier because you guys say you're pointing up. You want the over on this one. I'm going to say a minimum 400 plate appearances. Ooh. And you can't pull up the card of like, you didn't get the 400. You would have got it had he not done it. You got to factor that into your analysis. And here's the thing: point of reference: Spencer Horwitz didn't get the 400 plate appearances last year.
So okay. Gotcha.
This is making
basically name the name that you think is going to have 400 plate appearances and have over 109 OPS plus.
Yeah.
And even if you think that guy exists in terms of an over 109 OPS plus, if you don't think he's going to reach the 400 at bat plateau, the answer to this question is nobody.
No, yes. Correct.
So
basically, do you think that they have a guy in their minor leagues, a 4A guy who can be a substantially above league average hitter on a semi-everyday basis?
400 is a lot.
I think Alan Roden can be that, but the 400 plate appearances is a lot.
It's a lot.
It's a lot for a guy who's never stepped on the field in the big leagues to this point. I love the approach. I love that he's not going to, it's basically Spencer Horwitz of last year, right?
He's many guys are going to get a rope.
And that's the point. That's where I'm like 400 ABs ain't going to happen.
I don't think it
All right. Here's because you guys both seem
change the caveat. Come on, Rob.
We're gonna switch. We're gonna switch it to 375 plate appearances. Does that change things?
No, I think
probably not, bud.
I think the number would have to be what did Spencer have last year?
He had like 380. He barely missed 400.
I say 300 then.
300. That's
wow. Let's 350 because 350's just over half of a year if you're a full-time player.
We'll meet you halfway. Okay, we'll do 350. We'll do 350. Minimum 350 plate appearances.
No.
Again,
my take about George Springer getting a lot of ABs. He's going to get out there. Once Varsho's back, obviously he's going to play every day in center field. They're going to need Santander in left field as much as they can to keep a DH spot open for some of the guys. It's going to be tough, though. I don't know. I don't think so. I don't think there is a guy in the roster. If it is, it's going to be Roden because I don't see anybody else that's gonna come up for the minor leagues and give you anything like that.
I don't have my access to my computer right now, but like maybe someone could do a quick search on like how much did the ancillary players get? Like how many plate appearances did Davis Schneider get, or Addison Barge,
Last
or
year?
guys like that? Yeah, last year.
No,
So
what
give
did
us a point of reference.
What did Davis Schneider get the year he came up? Give me that number.
He
There's no
had
way that was 350. He came up like second week of
he had
August.
141 plate appearances in his first year and 454 last year.
Yeah. Okay. Because of my Springer take, I'm taking the yes,
over.
and I think it's Roden.
Yep.
Okay.
So, but I think it'll be just over 350.
I'm with you. I was contemplating taking the over at 400. So at 350, yeah, I'm doing it. And I think, I'm with you. I think it'll either be Alan Roden or Elvis Martinez, because a guy with pop
Fair.
that can escalate that OPS plus way up if he hits like 20
Yeah.
plus bombs. Which, I mean, that'd be great if Elvis Martinez did that. I'm not predicting him to do that, but I mean, I'm not ruling it out. I'm not ruling it out. And I think that if he can hit 20 home runs and 350 plate appearances, then yeah, I think that he'll definitely hit the over on this one. So I'm betting that at least one guy does it.
You want to hear a crazy stat from last year, boys? Davis Schneider had 2 more plate appearances than Ernie Clement last year.
No way. That is crazy. Because Ernie Clement put up a 3+ WAR, I believe, and I said all year long that people just weren't giving him the credit that he deserved. He was the best player from the Bisons on our team last year, and it wasn't close. And he had legitimately played himself into an everyday role, hopefully this year, at third base again because of his defense and because of his bat-to-ball skills. So, yeah, I'm a big Ernie Clement guy.
135 games, 454 plate appearances for Davis Schneider. And Ernie played a few more games, but 2 less plate appearances.
Yep.
So
that's shocking.
Crazy.
Yep.
All right. So we got that. Moving on. We have Blue Jays All-Star representatives. So every team needs one. It's going to be a minimum of one. They had one last year. It was Vladdy. That was it. In 2022, when they made the playoffs, obviously that was the year where the Seattle series. I believe they had 5 All-Stars. I believe they had 5 that year. And I think in 2023 they may have had 6. I could be getting those mixed up. It could be the other way around. Yeah.
Anyways,
either way,
what's your number?
If you're a playoff team, you're gonna have
tell us the freaking number, bud. We don't care about the 6 and 5s.
Yeah. It won't matter. It won't matter if your number's 2. So yeah, what's your number?
3.5. 3.5 is the number.
Okay,
under.
That's a great over under.
I'm going under.
I'm going over. I wrote down 4 when I saw this question earlier.
Who the 4?
And that was without knowing what the over under was going to be set at. So I'm going to take the over. Vlad, Bo, Barrios, and I think either Kirk or actually no, sorry, Jimenez. That's my 4 that I would predict right now is 3 infielders and Jose Barrios. I think Kirk also has a shot at getting there as well.
So Rob, was it 3.5? You said?
Yeah.
So I got
Barrios or Gausman, obviously. I think.
Yeah, I was gonna say I got Vlad, Bo, and actually I think Gaz. And that's my 3. I don't think they're gonna get much more than that.
I got 3 as well. And it's probably those 3 honestly too. If you make me do it, could they get a 4th guy?
Because I think there's just way too many options for a 4th guy. Anthony Santander. None of us mentioned Anthony Santander, and he's probably gonna make it if he has 20 home runs at the break.
I can't imagine they get 3 straight, like 3 hitters in. If they're like, it depends how good they are, right? Like that's obviously proportional to like if they're a good team. I think they get the more they get. And like I think they're kind of going to be like in the mix of a wild card, either on the outside looking in or just barely in. So I think that's going to impede their ability to get more than 3.5. So I'm gonna agree. I'm gonna agree with pricing. I'm gonna say 3. I'll say they get 3.
Yeah. Here's my other thing. You got to factor in, I think, the Toronto fan base with the fact that if Anthony Santander
final vote, they could get the final vote. Yeah, you're right. That is a relevant consideration.
Yeah.
Is hitting homers. He's gonna get votes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
that's why I'm going with my take when I said he only can hit around 30 bombs. So I'm like, I don't think that rate
it'll be enough. Gotcha.
Right, it'll be at the 15 mark or something by the break, and it's just like, okay, I'll start. I don't know.
So. I have 4.
Okay.
They might get a surprise candidate. They might get a Justin Smoke crazy year where no one saw coming and comes in and he starts in the All-Star game. I'll say they get 3, and one of them will be a surprise candidate. I'll say that. That's my
that duo. Hey, that duo of Smokey and Morales, right? In the middle of that lineup.
Yeah.
It fed families through 2017.
Oh God. Let's hope for a better year than that. Let's hope for higher aspirations. All right, guys, we're coming into our final over/under.
All right.
You guys know where this is gonna go. It's the win total, and you guys kind of already gave your predictions in the chat in our group chat. So I set the over/under around that, kind of like in that range. I'm setting it at 85.5 wins, which if you take the over, you think they're going to win 86 and up? That's probably going to be enough to get into the playoffs. If you take the under, it's looking a little hairy. So that's where I'm setting the over under at. Cole, you go first.
Yeah, the win total is definitely where.
So hang on. Let me paint the picture before you answer. Vlad's going to have close to a 6-win season. Max Scherzer's going to have over 110 innings. He'll be healthy. Santander might hit 40 bombs. Bo's going to be top 10 in the AL in hits. Kevin Gausman's going to be back to being elite status. You think that there's going to be a surprise candidate that has over 110 OPS plus. You think they get more than 4 All-Stars, and yet you're not convicted that you're going to go to the playoffs?
Yeah.
Is that what we're hearing?
The bullpen and the rotation scares the shit out of me. And I was funny enough that you laid all this out. Because,
but even the bullpen, you thought they'd be like somewhat competent.
I took the over as in they're going to be worse than 19th.
No, 18.5 was the number, but you said like, they'll be like right around there. So like that's like not terrible. That's not terrible. Like if they get everything that you said, like 19th bullpen in baseball won't sink you.
No, but doesn't mean you'll end up with better than 84 wins, which was my prediction on Blue Jays center. And I know that it seems like all of this isn't aligned properly, but yeah, I have 84, and I think 85 is possible, so I'm taking the under.
Okay. So everyone's going to have a great year, but they're not going to be good. All right, Pricey. Pricey, I'm looking at your predictions right now. You're kind of half and half. You think that some guys who are going to have a good year, some guys, not so much. You think that you're kind of like me. You're kind of like not as bullish based on your predictions, but ultimately, you did say that you think they'd get in. Is that correct?
And I'm going to stick with that. I think they're going to be in the 87, 88 win mark. I truly believe that because I look around the American League, and I look around the American League East in particular. And I know people look at the Jays could be a 5th place. This is what I said, I think, on the pod with Ben. I'm like, the Jays could be 5th in the AL East, and that's not out of the question.
Yeah.
They could also.
Everybody's predicting them to finish 5th in the AL East.
100%.
That is where they're projected to finish.
Absolutely, but they could also be 1st. And I look at the rest of the American League East, and I think, who got better? I'd say maybe the Red Sox got a little bit better, right?
Okay, a little bit better. Come on.
Okay, well, they got.
Here's the thing. So, I think with the Red Sox, the interesting point is that, I would agree that, on paper, they're not
broken to start the year.
Substantially better, but, I think that, I think the Red Sox are going to, they might be in for their 2021 trade deadline type of thing, where, they have a bunch of prospects, they'll have an opening, and they'll go all out and make a bunch of moves. I think that's my prediction.
It's quite possible.
I don't think right now the Red Sox are, clearly ahead of the pack, but I think that they could be by the end of the year.
No, because I look at, again, I'm looking at, because we all talk about how it's so important to have a good start to the year, right? How many times have we heard it? And how many times have we seen this Blue Jays team fall flat in their face to start the year? They're already 5th in the AL East. And you're thinking, well, we got to try and crawl back, get back to 500. And let's start with the Red Sox, shall we? Brian Bayo, out. Cutter Crawford, out. Giolito, out. Sure, they have Tanner Houcks, and there's one other guy that's missing, isn't there?
Well, also, here's the thing. Garrett Crochet, their big offseason acquisition, he's never been a guy that's pitched, it's been extended innings. So, this would be his first year where he'd have to go, a full starter's load. So, I'm a little questionable about that and how exactly he'll be pitch, and if he'll be effective.
They acquired Walker Buehler, fine, who was horrendous in his regular season numbers with the Dodgers last year. So that, again, and Yoshida, I think, is out to start the season for them as well. It's just a horrific start to their year. Let's go to the Baltimore Orioles, shall we? It's very simple with them, okay? It's very, very simple. Sure, they got Tyler O'Neill, the power-hitting right-handed bat. I'm sorry. I watched him face the Blue Jays last year in some certain aspects. I'm like, dude, I'm sorry. You can crush the baseball, but nothing else. I can't watch that. They lost Santander, who hit 44 bombs for them last year. And, oh, by the way, they lost Corbin Burns.
And the pitching broke. Grayson Rodriguez and Kyle Bradish. They're both I'm not sure either will pitch this year.
Well, Bradish is a possible second half return to the season. And Grayson Rodriguez hasn't even pitched in the sim game. He hasn't done any of that yet. He's just tossing from certain feet. So he's only doing that. And
Gunnar Henderson is going to start the season on the IL. He's not going to be making the trip to Toronto.
Yeah. There you go. There's another start. This is what I'm talking about. Good starts. And the last one, Yeah, because I'm not going to talk about the Rays because no thanks. The Tampa
The Rays are going to be good.
Yankees.
The Rays are going to be good.
Of course they're always going to be freaking good. Except for last year, down year, but then they're going to come back and be a 100-win team this year.
But if you look at the Rays last year, like they had like their whole starting rotation on the IL for the whole year.
Didn't
like,
McClanahan down to start the season though?
I think he's the one guy that's not going to pitch this year.
Yeah, he's out with a tricep injury.
Yep.
Feeling better, but no timeline. That was earlier today. The Yankees, sure, they got some nice players, but I'm sorry, Cole's done for the year, and you don't have Juan Soto. You don't have Juan Soto. I don't care about the other guys you got, Bellinger and I don't care. They're not Juan Soto, okay? They're not a guy who can entirely change the outline of a team in a snap of your fingers.
Yeah.
So I look at all of these teams, and sure, injuries-wise, I've heard a lot of these guys, but I look at the Blue Jays, and I'm like, look, it's possible. It is absolutely possible. Not going into the year, sure. I would say that they're probably the favorite to be last in the American League East.
I was just gonna say, like, out of all these things we outlined,
I get that.
Even with all those circumstances, this Jays team is still fifth. Like,
I think what he's trying to say is that like I don't think the gap is that substantial.
It's definitely not. They're not. I think they're significantly better, and especially with what I'm talking about, all these injuries to start the year. Let me go through the first bit of the schedule. You got Baltimore for 4. You got the Red Sox for 4. The Orioles for 3 more. The Yankees at the end of April. The Red Sox going into May. And that's all in the first month of the year with these teams that are broken to start.
Oh, yeah. But, like, the problem is that those broken teams I would still take over us. That's what I'm trying to say.
You can make that case.
Is with them injured, I still think they're a better team. The starting rotation for the Red Sox and the Yankees, actually all three of them, I agree. Like the AL East starting rotation wise, as of right now, starting opening day, is probably the worst gap of pitchers in the entire league in terms of a whole division. But I think that's just going to be a bunch of mid going off against a bunch of mid. So I think then it comes down to the offense, and I definitely trust the Red Sox offense over any offense in the AL East. I definitely trust the Orioles offense over our offense. And the Yankees offense, I would still give the edge because you have Aaron freaking Judge, the best hitter in baseball. And regardless of what you think about the Juan Soto stuff, replacing Juan Soto with multiple left-handed hitters with a short porch in right field is the best way to supplement that. And they did. And Bellinger had a great spring. Jazz Chisholm will have a full year now with the short porch in right field as a pull-dominant hitter. I think that I trust those 3 lineups. I definitely trust over the Jays, even if they are broken. Now it just comes down to whose rotation is going to perform the best, and I think that, and I don't trust the oldest rotation in baseball. And
I don't trust the oldest rotation in baseball, but I also trust the rotation in baseball that's done it. And that's the point I try to make. Where I look at Max Fried, great pitcher. You got a short porch in right field, bud. How many times have we seen great pitchers go to Yankee Stadium and piss down their leg? Carlos Rodon. Remember Sonny Gray was there?
Yeah, I was going to say Sonny Gray. Sonny Gray was the name that I had in mind.
It's a prime example, right? Yeah. He was pathetic there. Yeah. And so we've watched guys like that.
Great in Cincinnati in front of 1,100 people.
Absolutely. He was great in Minnesota when he shoved the Jays in the playoff game, right?
I'm not sure that he shoved. You look that game. I still
okay, Rob, we're not getting into specifics, bud.
He was a great hitter that game. The Blue Jays let him off the hook. But anyway, they let all the guys off the hook that year.
Yeah.
Bottom line, Yankee Sonny Gray was no good. So until I see Max Fried go out there and shove, I'll tip the cap to him. But until then, is that me being a Jays fan and not liking the Yankees? Quite possibly, but I don't care.
No, so, I definitely align a lot more with like your take on the rest of the AL East. I would not be shocked in the slightest if either the Yankees or the Orioles missed the playoffs this year. Obviously, obviously, I'm not going to predict both of them will miss the playoffs. But I'm just saying I wouldn't be surprised.
But would you be shocked if the Jays won the division?
Sure.
Yes, I would.
Okay.
Yes. All that. This is all to say that. I do think it's possible. I think that that's very real what James said, that I think that the AL East is very gettable. I think that that's going to help a lot. I think that's going to be the biggest.
Bad.
Sorry?
In the past, we've been bad against the AL East.
Exactly. That's the point. That's the point. I think that they'll be able to snag a few wins that way because the competition won't be as large. Ultimately, I still feel like they're going to be on the outside looking, and I think that they're going to be. I'm with you, Professor. I think they're just missing the playoffs. I have them at 83 wins. Which I think makes a little bit more sense because I wasn't give me the over in every category and then still victim to not make the playoffs. But 83 wins. I think they'll be competitive. And I don't think that for them to win 86, 87 games, like Pricey said, that a whole lot needs to go right. I think that a 60th percentile outcome gets them into the playoffs. Which
So this
look,
is
right there.
why it's another reason as to why I said the number I said. You guys are saying what, Cole? What'd you say?
84.
84. Cole, you said 83, right? And missed
I'm
the
giving
playoff.
83.
If you are an 83 win team and missing the playoffs, organization's in turmoil. And you shouldn't even be attempting, because at that point you think about it. If you're an 83 win team, you probably didn't stay pack at the deadline, right? You probably bought something, because if you sold off, we know who you're selling off, and you would not be an 83 win team after that.
Yeah. No, you're buying. You're buying if you're 83 win team.
That's what I'm saying. But if that's the case, you're probably going to be more than an 83 win team if you're going to buy. And this organization, where they're at in their cycle, they're going to have to be all into it. Whatever they got, prospect wise, gotta go. I think that's why I think they're going to be more than 83. If you're around that mark, like by around that, I guess, winning percentage mark by the trade deadline, they're going to push it, which I think that's why I think they're going to be more. But if they're not, and they're under 500, I don't even think they'll get to 83, because I think they have to sell off.
Here's the thing that we've never really had this analysis, because we've never really been in position to, because we've talked so much about the prospects and how you need a farm system, you need waves and waves to prospect, but I don't think that's a thing anymore for this franchise. I think that this franchise has proven that look, if we're gonna have a top 5 payroll in the sport, who cares? Who cares if we have the 22nd something best farm system? I mean, obviously, you're not going to build an efficient winner that way, but you can build this team, like what we think now, can be a competitive wildcard team. You can have this every year if you really wanted to. So, I don't think that's out of the question. So, I'm saying to your point that, you know what, if you're willing to run this payroll, if that's going to be the business model for the foreseeable future, trade prospects. If you have to, trade them. You're gone.
No. So,
Back 'em, buddy.
Yeah, I will say that if this team's hovering around 500 at the deadline, Martinez you have to make a decision on Martinez. Whether you want him to play for your team in September, or whether you want him to play for a different team at some point in his career, that decision has to be made July 31st. And I wanted to elaborate on James's point, just in case it wasn't clear, because I think that is actually a really good take. If the Jays are in it at the end of July, he's basically saying that he doesn't see a pathway to where they fall into an 82 to 85 win team, or an 84 win team, maybe to narrow the margin a little bit more. He basically is saying the only possible scenarios are they finish with over 84.5 wins,
right?
Or they
it's
finish
all or nothing,
right, or they finish below 500, because just based off of the logic at the deadline, and the Jays have made moves at the deadline when they are in it, so. Or when they were out of it and they sold off everybody they were going to sell off except for Chad Green last year. In terms of the turmoil, and in terms of being competitive next year with a wildcard team, I don't think we can say that that's a guaranteed. Not that it matters. We don't have to have the conversation today. But without Bo and Vlad on the team,
don't worry, buddy. We got 2 pods a week. We'll fill up.
We'll jam it in there somehow.
Without Bo and Vlad on the team, running this payroll is entirely different. So I don't think we can just say they're if they just run this payroll, they can be competitive every year. If you don't have a 6-WAR player potential on your team, then you won't be competitive every year. It's simple as that.
No, but I think the main point is all these moves, all these decisions have to be made ahead of time. Obviously, the reality is that you have to decide whether you have a legitimate shot at keeping these guys or you don't. Here's the thing: you're not the Kansas City Royals or the Cincinnati Reds, where it's
they decide,
or the Guardians. You guys recall that year where the Guardians were first in the AL Central with Trevor Bauer being great. They traded him at the deadline because they're we're not. I know that we're competitive right now, but there's no chance in hell we're keeping him based on what he's going to command on the open market. So let's get ahead of the curve. Right. You're not like that. If the Blue Jays, they have to drop a business model and say, regardless of what our record is, if we're going to keep these guys beyond July 31st or August 1st or whenever the trade deadline is, we have to make a legitimate push to sign them and go over the top, extend beyond our evaluations if that's the case. So all this stuff has to be decided. All this stuff has to be decided ahead of time. And if not, if you think that based on your evaluations you can't get it done, then I'm sorry. I don't care what your record is. You got to trade them.
No, they made for anybody that is unclear about the Vlad and Bo situation. Running this payroll this year, a week out from, or 3 days away from opening day, they made the decision. That means they're going to try to keep Bo and Vlad next offseason. That should be clear to everybody.
Not necessarily.
It is the only way that it is, because the only way that changes is if the team that you tried to field this year isn't competitive. That's the only way this changes. If you're out of it in July, then yes, Bo and Vlad will likely get traded because you are out of it. But that still doesn't mean that they won't try to re-sign them in the offseason. So by having them on your roster on March 24th, 2025, and you're running a top 7 payroll in baseball, that is telling everybody that you are going to want to try to re-sign them next offseason, barring being completely out of it at the end of July.
Yeah, I think to me, like, I think Bo's that's Bo's specific question, because like we even talked about Ennis on our last podcast about like what you would do in that situation, because I think the Vlad thing, it's binary. They're gonna go after Vlad. They made a competitive offer to him. They're gonna make another competitive offer in the offseason, regardless of what his market value is. I think that Vlad, they're whether it's in free agency or the next couple of days or within the next year, they're gonna make a very serious push to keep him.
For
The
sure.
question is, what do you do with Bo Bichette? And I think that's the one that, if you're in the midst of a wild card race, you should try to move him on. You should move on from him if you're not going to pay him. That's what Ben said. And I agree. I agree with what he said on our last podcast. I think that's the one. That's the one that you got to keep your eyes open for.
When you got Jimenez, I would have traded Bo immediately. I get maybe you did field offers and you realized that you were selling his stock at its lowest price, which is very possible. I'd be shocked if there wasn't some legit offers for him, but if that was the case, then I get keeping him. But yeah, I'm with Robin. I think that, like, unless you're in it, he should be traded at the deadline regardless, because I think you have his replacement at $150 million less than what it's going to cost you to keep Bo Bichette, and I think Andres Jimenez will be just as good as Bo Bichette for the next decade. So I think that you have his replacement, so I agree that he should be traded at the deadline, but it all depends on whether you're in it or if you're just like hovering in it.
And that's why I made the 88 prediction, because if you're in it, he's on your team.
Yeah, he's on your team. Yeah.
So that's the way she goes.
All right, guys, that's it for the over-unders. Do we want to do any last-second thoughts, like any like bull takes, like any other predictions you guys want to throw out there, or before you depart for the evening?
I want to make it clear. I think it's pretty clear already if you're following Blue Jays Center or this podcast. I'm an Andres Jimenez stan. I'm claiming him. That's my guy. I'm claiming him. I think he's going to have a closer to serviceable OPS plus this year, which is right around league average in my opinion. I think he'll be a 5-WAR player this year. I think he will be an all-star, and I think that he'll be our future shortstop for the next half decade to a decade. So,
is there a guy on this team you don't like? Is there an integral player on this team you don't like? Because it
Mike
seems like
Trout.
you think everyone's great, but yet when you put them all together, they're not as great.
No, I said Vlad's going to be worse than he was last year. I think, yes, Bo's going to be closer to what he was for his entire career. I think Jimenez is going to be good. Yes, I think he's going to be better than what he was last year in Cleveland. But in terms of yes, I have a Buffalo guy having 350 plate appearances.
I think Cole's right though. I think Cole's in a good spot because
I think the rest of the roster is not that good. I
look
think
at that bullpen.
Hang on, what do you mean the rest of the roster? You said Kevin Gausman All-Star, Jose Barrios All-Star, Max Scherzer going to be healthy.
I said either Jose Barrios or Kevon Gausman.
Oh, okay.
I said can be an all-star. I think one of them is not going to be good this year. I don't think we get both of them at their career averages this year. I think one of them's going to be below career average. I think Max Scherzer, while being healthy, is not going to be that good. And I think that the bottom of that rotation is going to be not good. And then the bullpen I'm scared shitless of. So that is how I've worked around it. I just think that, like we got last year with Vlad, we wouldn't have ever imagined a world where we got a 6-WAR Vladimir Guerrero Jr. and a 70-win Blue Jays team. I think that we're going to be in for a similar outcome this year, but be closer to 500, obviously.
Yeah, I mean that's the beauty of baseball, right? Because like a 6-win Vladimir Guerrero Jr. Well, you also get like the literally a worst percentile outcome for Bo Bichette and the worst bullpen in baseball, and it's not remotely close. Like, right. That's how you go from elite Vlad to not being competitive.
Right.
Absolutely, boys. I don't know. There's much else to touch on.
Guys, the next time we're talking, will be 2025 season will be on the way, underway.
Man. Games will be at Rogers Center. Beers will be in my gut. It's going to be a great time, boys. Can't wait to be down at Rogers Center again. You know what that means for me? Summertime's coming. Summertime's coming. None of this snow nonsense that we had today. What the hell was that?
Yeah, no snow here in Windsor, man.
Yeah, relax, buddy. All right, settle down. Okay, we had snow this morning.
March 27th, 3 p.m. Eastern, the Jays open up against the Baltimore Orioles division rival. And no better way, in my opinion, to start the Blue Jays campaign than getting an AL East rival right out of the way. 4 games at the Rogers Center. Let's go. I'm looking for 3-1.
And for back-to-back years, the Blue Jays get to face Zach Eflin.
Jose Barrios versus Zach
the other
Eflin,
side.
back-to-back years, yeah.
There you go. Hopefully
That's
they get the
crazy.
same result as they did last
Yes.
year. So a
Yes.
lot of bombs against Zach Eflin at the Trop. It's I'd love to see that at Rogers Center on Thursday, boys. It's been a blast today, as always. Game 1, 162 on the television, starting Thursday at 3:07. Jays, Orioles, Zach Eflin, Jose Barrios, the matchup, boys. Let's get it going. And I can't wait to talk to you guys after real baseball starts. Boy, offseason talk's over. Let's get to the real stuff. Thanks, guys, so much for watching. For myself, James Price, Robin Tillerman, Cole Whiston, thanks so much for listening and or watching. And we'll talk to you guys when first pitch happens.
Lights up. Let's go.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast Blue Jays Center on YouTube, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts.